So moving on now, we've just heard a presentation about how people are going to be, distributing work, literally work, in the future. And I think the Pathfinder sessions that we're developing here are about the impact on the human, the impact on climate, and the impact on society, and similar themes as that. So just to introduce a little kind of a panel discussion, Sachin has joined us again from Builder AI. We've also got Pierre Debec from Open Classrooms, talking about future of learning. We've also got Harold Neidhard, who's the CEO and curator of Futurio Institute, who do a lot of consulting and advising on the future of these topics. And finally we have Jen Sander, who's the Global Innovation Director for Burning Man. Let's have a little round of applause. Just in case I didn't introduce myself earlier, if you've just joined, my name's Mike Butcher. I'm the editor-at-large for TechCrunch and co-founder of Pathfinder, the new Pathfinder series. So let's sort of unpack this a little bit. Can I talk to you briefly first, Pierre? Are we actually schooling people for the future? Because the way children are schooled these days is still pretty much the sort of developed 100 years ago during the Victorian era. The idea, we've only have one microphone, so we'll just pass this around and have a discussion between us. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. So short answer is no. And interesting data comes from Gallup, the US survey. Asked basically university leaders, do you think you're preparing your graduates properly to enter the workforce? Do they have the right skills? 93% said yes, of course. When they asked the employers, what do you think it is? It's 13%. So you can see like kind of the mismatch between what the curriculum looks like and the actual needs of the employer. So now clearly we need to completely adapt the existing higher education institutions, but also kind of reskill the existing workforce. It's not just only changing the curriculum for younger folks, but also reskilling the existing workforce.
Yeah. Jen, burning man, what's
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really, it's interesting. It's, very sort of Sir Ken Robinson, that there's not enough creativity and learning through doing and sort of participatory learning in society and education right now. I think that creating the opportunity for more learning through doing and kind of remembering, right now we're in a moment in time where a lot of different things are coming to head, and it's a moment for us to kind of remember what it means to be human again, and sort of the idea of visually conceptualizing your ideas like an artist might, to be an entrepreneur and encouraging kind of prototype culture and making through doing, which brings, jobs and innovation back to cities, is becoming more and more important in order to kind of enhance that sort of job marketplace that we're speaking to.
Okay, so I want to talk about Promise Hub today. And it's probably the opposite of what you just said, and there might be a chance to do something like what you said, and there's a classroom. So it's a little bit of that. So about a year ago, we started to build a school for entrepreneurs in Nakivale, which is a refugee camp in Uganda, and we launched it last April. And the refugee camp is since 50 years, and we're building a school for entrepreneurs. So we're not really doing ABC 1, 2, 3, but 18 plus people who are just like, okay, what do we do? And there's like no opportunity, of course. So for us, the offset, or the question was, can we move opportunity, which can then becomes work, entrepreneurship, and so on, so where they are. So we first obviously built some broadband, and we built a post office, so first time since 50 years somebody can send a package or receive something. But the whole notion is, okay, what type of work can we create? How do we actually start the attitude? Because we don't have teachers, it's all mentors. The method, Sugata Mitra, is sort of more, we give them tools and encouragement. So the question is, for us, how do we help? The first tool, let's say projects they do, it's all that sort of jewelry, and which is not, it's great stuff, it's close to their heart, but they learn entrepreneurship. The question for us now is, and for me to everybody here, how do we move higher skilled jobs, so that instead of having like 10 cents on a little plastic recycling thing, but how can we make them that they earn $5 a day? Because if they have $5 a day, let's say, just put a number, they will not move. Otherwise, everybody in the south will just move up where opportunities are. So that's our little part of a pilot. So,
well, let's do a deal then. Why don't you make your platform available to his school?
So I think, I think when you think about education, to a certain point you hit it on the nail. We today segregate jobs. There are jobs that are working in a factory. There are jobs that are assembly. They're robotic in nature. And I think what the future holds is they will be robotic in execution. And so what you suddenly now have is a very large part of the population that has to figure out how to stay relevant in a world where robotic work is being done by robots and not synthesized by humans. And I think this whole notion of creativity, what it means to be human is one of the few things. It's dealing with serendipity, being creative, and collaborating. Machines can't do that. And so as long as we continue to educate downstream from the age of 7 upwards on those 3 basic fundamentals, you're going to have a population in 100 years from now that is over-indexed on those and not trying to synthesize robots.
I'm glad you said that because I think one of the opening statements from Klaus was that we've spoken about what for many, many years, but not how, right? And kind of going back to this more beginner's brain, kind of childlike mindset and doing things in a more kind of like exploratory way without the sort of pressures that we put on ourselves as an innovation concept within corporate culture or within city design, whatever it might be, we know is what is kind of galvanizing that creativity back into the mindset. What would you like to say? Oh, no?
Finish your sentence. For me, it's important that we're not creating just 1,000 mechanical Turk jobs, where like click, click, yes, yes, no, porn, gone, or ABC, AI. It has to be something creative and meaningful, because otherwise, if it's only that mechanical Turk, you will also eliminate that. So we need to have.
That's a very short half-life job anyway. I think the world of synthesized robotic jobs, mechanical Turk or X, that ship has sailed. And what we're left with is just the remnants of that ship. And so if we don't make the step change right the way from a 3-year-old upwards, then what you're going to end up having is a sort of negative view of automation and AI, because all it's trying to do is remove the human inefficiency and bring in the human creativity.
If you want that, then I can.
My job is to be asked dumb questions. Love being a journalist. What happens when the AI gets creative? Yeah.
So it hasn't happened yet, to be clear, and it's not very clear it's going to happen anytime soon, despite like there are many people saying, yeah, that's going to happen very soon. Truth is, we're pretty far away from having kind of a general artificial intelligence. That might be a fairly big problem when it comes to humanity, when it comes. But right now we're still pretty far ahead in terms of human brains when it comes to creativity. I mean, it's not purely copying and pasting stuff. So far I'm still confident, but it's true that if we don't like teach our kids and everybody pretty much when social skills and soft skills and creativity and whatnot, that's going to be a fairly big problem in 20, 30 years.
Well, I think there's a huge opportunity when you tie the next panel together, a new job market for sustainability. It's $1 trillion market. We're not taking jobs away from anybody, but we have to find, okay, is there a new way of engagement which then gets remunerated, the values included and so on, that we're helping the world to make the world a better place, but also creating the jobs along it, so that not everybody has to be a programmer, because some of the things when the refugees came to Europe, say, oh, everybody has to be a programmer. I'm not sure if everybody likes to be a programmer, but we got to find other ways where they feel valued, and not only they, I mean, also us. I mean, not everybody in the room will have the same job in 3 years from now, probably not in 18 months. So I think it's for all of us to what is work mean, value creation, and just having a purposeful life, which may be only 4-hour work weeks or something. I mean, there's all of these things are basically titanic shifts and all of that. But I think there's a chance we have to say, if there's a new market in sustainability, there's new forms of work. is there a combination which leads a way for purposeful life, or purposeful work life, and so on, with art?
Yeah, thank you with art. I was just going to say that, you know, obviously we know that there's a lot of innovation that happens at Burning Man, and people go in there to prototype almost like in a petri dish. But when we start talking about real cities and the importance of artists in that, I think that the creative capital cities of the future are going to be the ones that really incentivize entrepreneurial learning and entrepreneurs as well as artists to be there. And one of the examples we're seeing in America right now is these opportunity zones, right? These kind of like tax havens for developers, but they have to collaborate with civic initiatives. So what we're seeing now is a lot of this kind of pop-up engagement with small initiatives happening in shipping containers, right? And then once they have a track record, they're getting the financing they need to move into the brick and mortar and working with developers to not get displaced. So there are kind of like, you know, examples of some of this coming together, but we could talk about this for a really long time, so.
And maybe just for that contrarian view that you were looking for, I think if we assume that the singularity is ways away, you have two macro trends. One is that machines will continue to remove repetitive work. Solving basic problems might become repetitive work, things that we're using creativity for. So the order of creativity will change. And as long as you maintain, to me, the human collaboration, which is ultimately creates and created by serendipity, that brings together creativity, you are continuing to solve a higher order problem. But I think the second macro trend that's going to happen is that whilst that balance shifts, so today we're getting rid of repetitive work, tomorrow we'll get away with repetitive problems, and machines will continue to improve the things that they can do without human interference or involvement. What you've got on the other side is you're creating a massive amount of efficiency. So when you're creating efficiency, whether it's income or resource that an average human needs to survive, will drop. And so that's when I think these ideas of universal income or basic income, or how does the next 250 years look in terms of how we earn, buy resource, and expend resource, I think that's going to change.
That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Let's have a little bit of a survey. Put your hand up if you think universal basic income is going to be the future of being able to survive, I guess. Let's see. Let's go for about a third of you. Let's do this again next year. See how many putting their hands up. In our closing seconds of this panel, I'm going to allow maybe one, maybe two questions. Is there any questions we'd like to point, or points that anyone would like to make? All good? Looks like we're solving all the problems. Hello.
I have a quick question because
Yes.
I missed the beginning. Is the argument that cannabis is going to forward creativity?
No. That
session is late.
But it might do. This is we're doing a session on work, and you could take cannabis and work. Might be an interesting example. It might, perhaps artists would be better. Go for it.
So, I want to weave it to this WEF. Is anybody here from the UN? Or from these, let's say, big global organizations? So I had a chance to speak at an elders meeting with then Kofi Annan. And they were talking about, you know, refugees and problems and so on, and chance. And the way, that's what I want to circle back to, how they understand work is, for example, yeah, we have people from Afghanistan moving over the border to Pakistan, and then for a week, for a year, they cannot work because we don't want refugees taking work. I said, so what is that kind of work? Yeah, the work is, I don't know, digging stone, something very primitive work, but you can see somebody's working or not. I said, but don't we have to think about new work? So if we, for example, create digital jobs, so we don't take anything from the traditional jobs or what's there in the region, let's say if everybody weaves carpets, there's something else we can do. Don't we have to think about that? And they looked at me, that is out of a whole different, they had no clue about this. So we have to all in the room kind of enter this discussion up the hill with some of these multinational organizations who really are in their kind of procedures and national discussion and politics and so on, to really educate what is coming, because they have no idea. They think in this, work is what they did 20 years ago or 40 years ago. So I think that is, let's say, this kind of tectonic shift I see, where digital and new opportunities need to create new ways, and we have to educate, we have to take the politicians along, so to say, in our journey.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Just to explain that, that the signposting on this building is Canatech, and there was some CBD conference here yesterday or something. So, but this is a session about sustainable tech and impact tech. Just to make it clear, so I don't want anyone to be disabused of that. So, ladies and gentlemen, can we thank our panel?